Gentlemen, welcome back to Wrestling, and it's been a very busy 2 weeks. The wrestling world. We had Wrestlemania, and we thought things couldn't get crazy there, and you know, surprise, surprise, was proven wrong. And we've had a lot of stuff has gone down, especially in the last 2 days, and we'll talk about everything in due course, because it's a lot to get through, and yeah, there's just so much has happened in the world of wrestling. There's been, of course, WrestleMania, which was just a whole mess of a show. Well, in a good way. And then we had some sad news that we got, and then we went back to crazy before the week rounded out. So we'll talk about it all in due course. Jack, how are you?
I'm good. It's been a crazy week in wrestling. Um, like in terms of everything, and then we still have to go into talk about Mania. We tried recording a number of times a full breakdown of Mania. We got 40 minutes into one episode where
What?
the
It was
feed,
it was 1 hour.
1 hour. We got 1 hour into one episode, and it got cut, but the feed cut through. So we won't be going through the entire Mania card because we had intended to, even when our feed cut. But then because there's so much after happening this week that we none of us could have expected.
Yeah,
We just don't have the time really
yeah.
because we want to
Plus,
talk about that stuff as well.
yeah,
So we will talk about the highlights and high points, and kind of low points, what we liked and disliked from WrestleMania, but we will not be breaking it down match by match.
yeah.
Um,
No time. Plus, it was
and
60 minutes, so it's just too long. Um.
yeah,
So yeah. And like you said, there's been a lot happening this week, so we'll have to talk with them about that as well and give that the time that deserves as well. So
yeah.
I suppose starting off, no point wasting any more time. In regards to WrestleMania, Jack, what did you like and what didn't you like?
I suppose when you look at night one, highlights for me were obviously the Boneyard match. That was something we've never seen, or like something that WWE never leaned in towards. And when when they have, it's just fucking brilliant. Uh, Again, like you see I love the aspect of the trash talking, and I think that was an aspect that was seen best throughout this WrestleMania.
Yeah,
Um, of like and that's what benefited without a crowd blocking out that noise, that like you were able to tell better stories at some points. And especially here with Undertaker and AJ. Undertaker told
yeah,
a
Undertaker.
fantastic story.
Yeah,
Like
like Undertaker was like on form with his trash talk stuff. It just brought a new air of menace to him. Like
yeah,
he abandoned the dead man gimmick, well, to an extent, and then he came out and brought when he's like holding AJ and stroking his hair and telling him to go out like a man and stuff. It brings a whole new air of menace to the Undertaker, and just makes him like still evokes or emotes that atmosphere of like
yeah.
pending dread that you would get from the Undertaker when he comes down to the ring, but just finding a new way, a new take, and a new kind of modern take on it, I guess.
Yeah, I love Taker in this. It's probably the best he's looked in a long time. Like the fact that when he was saying, like, when he had AJ kind of beat at this point, and he was telling him, "Oh, how old am I? What's my wife's name again?" Like stuff like that, and um, when he's about to bury AJ, and AJ's like, "Oh, please don't bury me.
Don't
Please
bear me.
don't bury."
Yeah, AJ as well was on form. Like, I mean, he made like as like, of course, AJ Styles would be fantastic here because he's AJ Styles. He's one of the greatest of all time, and
Yeah,
he's like he you could sense the fear. Like you could sense that he was like the sniveling, cowardly heel here. That like he was all talk, and then when it came time to like to when it came time to actually man up and fight the Undertaker, when he had his back against the wall, he was reduced to groveling and begging the Undertaker not to bury him, which is
it was classic heel getting what he deserves, and AJ has been around long enough to know how to tell that story, and of course, obviously, Undertaker has been around a lot longer to tell that story as well. I thought even the addition of Gallows and Anderson, which it's we'll talk about later what has happened with them, and it's a little unfortunate, but they were really good in this. The whole Druids thing, the Druids aspect of it was fantastic. Where they summoned the Druids.
I was genuinely convinced that it was going to be like they would all take off the hoods and it would be like Tamatanga and Tangaloa and.
You see, that was the thing. Someone I didn't go back and count myself, but someone pointed out that on Twitter that the number of Druids equaled the number of members of the Bullet Club when Gallows, Anderson, and AJ were in it. I don't know how true that is, but someone did point that out on Twitter.
Oh, that's it. I actually didn't know that, but I was looking at it and going, it'd be so cool if they all just took off their hoods and it was a Bullet Club. But no, unfortunately not. I mean, maybe it was. Who knows? But we'll never know now. But yeah, no. Of course, they had the Druids. I'd love to know what the idea, who actually were those Druids? Were they actually Undertaker's Druids from before? And did they convince them somehow to turn on him? I don't know.
And how did they convince them? I don't know.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, just a crazy match with some. I mean, I know there was added sound effects and the way the camera or the way it was edited made some things look a lot like it looked like AJ was being hit a lot harder than he was, and vice versa. But still some crazy bumps in it. And
I like that they buried Goldberg halfway through it.
Yeah.
And, he punched his hand through the glass and he just looked at it and smiled. Whereas Goldberg now he took his fucking hand off. For me, that was the highlight. That was one of the highlights, because this was a really, really impressive WrestleMania. The match before that, Rollins and Owens, I thought was great as well. We'd be remiss to mention that. I thought that was fantastic. I think that was the best in studio match, in the Performance Center match of the weekend. I thought that was fantastic. Two guys who used the the aspect of no crowd better than anyone, I felt. I thought they were brilliant, and Kevin Owens got the accolade of being the first and probably only person to ever jump off the WrestleMania sign.
Yeah, hopefully. Hopefully he's the only one to do it.
Shane McMahon will try and better him at some point, I would imagine.
Probably. But no, yeah, like you said, I mean, those two guys really took advantage of the kind of no crowd aspect of the whole event. Yeah. And the trash talk was fantastic. Seth Rollins was just absolutely on form here as a heel. And Kevin Owens, as you said, just, making a WrestleMania moment seemingly out of nothing. Why, a giant senton / elbow drop off the WrestleMania sign through the announce table. Yeah. So two, and also I think it would be kind of it'd be kind of unfair to not mention as well on one, the triple threat ladder match for the SmackDown tag titles. Just another fantastic match. Brilliant. I mean, obviously this was a match that was, of course, kind of it had to be altered due to the current situation going on in the world, and with the Miz apparently being sick and being sent home from the taping. So he wasn't able to actually participate in WrestleMania itself. So they had to change it to a singles triple threat match with John Morrison, Kofi Kingston, and Jimmy Uso representing their respective teams in a triple threat ladder match. But they absolutely tore the house down. It was a fantastic match. A lot of people pick for match of the weekend. It's hard to
up there, definitely.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree. It was a really good match.
And I thought in terms of everyone, because John Morrison and Kofi would have obviously great experience in singles competition as well. But I thought Jimmy Uso was brilliant in this because, like, I said it to you while the match was going on. I was like, this. How many times has Jimmy Uso wrestled in what technically was a singles match? It must only be his fifth or sixth singles match ever on TV, anyway.
Yeah.
Um,
Because
and
like remember a few years back when like I think it was Jey Uso. I can't remember which Uso it was. One of the Usos got injured, and obviously they were like, we're not going to put both of them on like we're not going to put one of them on TV just wrestling singles matches. So they put him on commentary instead, and
yeah,
like so like even then even like when one of them is injured, like they're not even wrestling like they're not wrestling singles matches on TV or anything. So
yeah,
yeah,
and
I mean
I thought he was brilliant in this,
yeah, he was fantastic.
and even this trash talking and stuff. He was another guy that utilized the no crowd aspect of it, and
Yeah,
I thought he was fantastic.
yeah, absolutely. And I suppose one more big thing that came out of night one was, of course, Braun Strowman defeating Goldberg to win the Universal Championship for the first time. Braun finally getting the big one. It was kind of marred, due to, of course, Roman Reigns not being like Roman Reigns was the original opponent for Goldberg, but then, of course, had to pull out due to him being due to his immune system being compromised due to his battles with leukemia. And they had to rally to find a replacement kind of last minute, and they decided to go with Braun. And I mean, like the match was about like as good as it could have been. I suppose it was just like both guys had their finisher bars just loaded to max, and it just went absolutely ham with finishers. And match literally went 2 minutes with Braun getting the win, which I guess was the right call. I mean, like
well, it was it was a business call because Goldberg has no more dates booked, so they have to take the belt off him.
Yeah, I mean, like, well, yeah, when you think about it, like they did have to, and like you can argue that they could have kept the belt on Goldberg and just kept him around until Roman was ready to come back and done the match then. But
yeah, I think though, from what has come out since and all that, I think WWE might be kind of done with Goldberg because I think a lot of people with this run, I think a lot of people have soured on it. From what I've read, I obviously don't have any inside information on it.
Yeah, this is all like reports that were just we're reiterating. But apparently, yeah, Goldberg did a lot of politicking backstage over the last few months, and it's soured a lot of people on him, as in backstage talent. Being like a lot of the wrestlers like weren't happy with what went down in Saudi Arabia, and this just absolutely not a fan of Goldberg at the moment. So yeah, I would imagine that he'd be taking a fairly substantial break from the company for the meantime, if not for good. I feel like he probably will be back one more time just to do one last definitive thing before he leaves.
Yeah. What was interesting was that what came out that the original plan was for Jeff Hardy to beat him, and then he politics because he felt Jeff Hardy wasn't big enough or believable enough to beat him or whatever.
I would have been so up for Jeff Hardy winning the Universal title.
Yeah, I would have been too, but
look, we have a monster. We have a monster among men now as our champion, and I mean, like,
and what's come next is that he's feuding now with Bray, and I'm excited for that. I think they can do a lot with that with the story that they can tell. No, I actually didn't catch up on SmackDown last night. I probably should have.
Well, actually, to be fair, right, SmackDown was class last night. SmackDown was actually really good. I thought it was a really good show anyway. But I was
planning on watching it live, but I actually fell asleep. But
I was just kind of checking out everything that was kind of transpiring. But I'll just quickly talk about before I talk about what happened with Braun and Bray. The two other big things that came out of SmackDown, I suppose, was the New Day are now 8-time tag team champions. Winning.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They had like the other half of the triple threat last night with The Miz versus Big E versus Jey Uso, and Big E got the win and won the tag team titles for the New Day. So they're now, I believe, 6-time SmackDown tag team champions and 8-time tag team champions overall. So that was obviously really good. I mean, Big E just celebrated like an absolute maniac. That was hilarious. But second to that was Sonya Deville cut probably one of the best promos of the year, I would say, and one of the like genuinely one of the best promos of the year. 100% her best promo ever. Cut a promo on Mandy Rose, and it was really good. I highly recommend looking that up. It was really good. Also, Dolph Ziggler came out in a Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins t-shirt, and we'll talk about why that's significant in a minute. But and also the opening segment of the night was a moment of bliss with Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross, and their special guest was Braun Strowman, and he came out with the Universal title, whatever, like, and they're all talking, and like it was really funny because they kept playing into like Team Little Big and Braun and Alexa's history. They kept referencing it, and then like in the corner of the ring there was a present. And Braun was like, "Oh, Alexa, you didn't have to get me a present for coming on or whatever." And Alexa was like, "Braun, I didn't get you anything." And he's like, "Ah, no, stop playing. Come on, I know you know us. Team Little Big. We're you and me are good. Like, well." And she was like, "No, honestly, I didn't get you anything." And he opens it up and he kind of looks and you can see the shock on his face. And like Braun was unreal here. His acting was like absolutely down to a T. And he took out. And inside the box was his old black Wyatt family mask, and he was just looking at it. You could see like the rage start to like bubble on him, and then you hear Bray Wyatt's laughter throughout the arena, and it was really good. It got me really excited for the feud.
That's cool.
Yeah, so like I'm excited for this feud, and it's interesting though because the match was made official as well for Money in the Bank last night, and it's Funhouse Bray versus Braun, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, like, because
I would imagine that Braun will beat Funhouse Bray. I've always advocated for that in the sense that like you can use Funhouse Bray as kind of a shield where he loses, and then that's how you protect the Fiend. So I think they probably want to keep the title on Braun at least for another month, just to make, because they don't like. I know they don't like taking the WrestleMania people like who win the title at WrestleMania. They don't like taking the title off them straight away, especially their main titles. So that's probably just the way of doing it.
Yeah, it's a shame because I had an idea how to book like Braun versus the Fiend. We might talk about it.
But I still think that'll happen. I think it might just be the next month,
Oh yeah. We'll talk about it in due course anyway.
But getting back to WrestleMania, because you've missed one thing from night one, and I'm not letting you get away with it. Becky Lynch.
Oh, yeah.
Becky Lynch, after you once again doubting my powers, Becky Lynch beat Shayna Baszler to retain the Raw Women's title and officially hold the title for a year. After y'all thought I was crazy.
I'm sorry.
So yeah,
that nearly made me turn off WrestleMania, to be honest with you.
I enjoyed the match. I'm not a lover of Shayna Baszler matches. I think they're very formulaic, and I always said that in the past. But I thought this was different. I thought this was good, and I enjoyed this match. I just don't like the repetitiveness of the finish. It's a finish now that's happened to Shayna Baszler at least 3 times. You think she'd be wise to it, or she would come up with some sort of counter. But I suppose it's still a way that protects her, so that's good.
I mean, like you said, like the finish was. I hated the finish. The match, the match wasn't the worst thing ever. And I understand what you're saying with Shayna Baszler matches being formulaic, but like I like Shayna Baszler matches. I just think she's really good at what she does, and I just thought the right call here. Like I don't know why they kept the title on Becky. Probably because of what you said, due to the fact that there was no crowd and stuff, and maybe they wanted to keep it for when there could be a crowd again. Or maybe it was the fact that they wanted her to get to being a year as champion and have that milestone under her belt. But I felt like the right call here was for Shayna to win. I mean, she's been absolutely she's been on a warpath since she came up to Raw. She ran through the entire women's division in the Elimination Chamber, and like, yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, I know it was technically like a roll up, but it was kind of a lucky win, I guess. But yeah, no, I didn't agree with it. Nothing I can do. I mean, obviously, but I suppose that was kind of my low point for WrestleMania, really. Um,
I was just happy that I was right.
yeah, I know you were happy that you were right, but
yeah.
And I laughed because I remember when it happened, I was like, oh, this he did it again. I can't believe he did it.
There was the great Khali. Remember when I predicted that?
That was hilarious. Did we watch that together?
Yeah, I think that was our second ever episode of the podcast because we recorded right after it.
Oh,
and I was like on a high. It was like second or third episode of the podcast. Maybe third. I think the second was the preview of Battleground or whatever the pay-per-view was, and then we watched it live, and then we did the review. And I predicted, what was it? I predicted Charlotte to beat Asuka at WrestleMania that time.
Yeah, but I don't think anything will top the Great Khali. Who saw that coming? You apparently.
Yeah.
So we'll move on from night one of WrestleMania. Quick, we'll move on to night two. I suppose kind of the big thing coming out of night two was the Firefly Funhouse match, which akin to the Boneyard match was this big cinematic thing, but like whereas the Boneyard match was kind of very straightforward, AJ fights Undertaker in a graveyard. This was like a fever dream. This was like
yeah, there was at least 2 or 3 occasions that I looked at my drink and I was like, what the hell is in this? I thought I was after being roofied or something. My God.
It looks like if Vince McMahon had dropped acid while having a meeting with John Cena and Bray Wyatt, and like this is what transpired. I mean, I'm not going to go through everything that happened in it. It's way better if people watch it and just experience it. And just like I would watch it and I'd watch it and then I'd watch it again and then maybe a third time because it's like a Marvel movie. It's like you each time you watch it you'll discover like a new Easter egg, or like a Quentin Tarantino movie. Like every time you watch it you'll notice something new. And go away, watch it, revel in the genius of Bray Wyatt, and come back to me. And John Cena, because he was fantastic here as well. But apparently like Bray Wyatt had a lot to do with the setup and the actual like I guess script of the match, and he's such a creative genius. Like I really hope that like when Bray eventually retires, hopefully in many years, that he does end up in like a backstage role in creative or as a producer or something, because like the man is so like tuned in and like so unique in the way he looks at wrestling and the way he can like and his character and like the way he can character development and do callback and stuff. Like I mean it's so good, it's so satisfying as like a viewer, when you're like I feel like I'm being rewarded for watching wrestling for this long, because like I was watching wrestling when like I was watching week to week when the first Bray Wyatt John Cena feud played out, and I feel like because I watched it 6 years ago, I'm being rewarded for my loyalty for the last 6 years. Look, I could talk all day about it. I could very easily go into it and break down the entire match and do a full episode on it. But like you're better off just going away and watching it. Try not to drink or smoke anything before you watch it, because you might be scared for life then. And and just come back and just realize that it's insane. It's one of my favorite wrestling matches ever. If you can count it as a wrestling.
If you can class it as that, yeah.
It's one of my favorite wrestling things. Favorite, I don't know what to call it. It's not a segment. I don't know what
wrestling
to call it.
experiences.
Yeah, I guess that's I suppose that's relevant. I don't know. So yeah, Firefly Funhouse match is just whatever. Go watch it. It's insane. Other high points, I suppose, of night two was of course the opening match, which was again one of the kind of one of the contenders for match of the weekend. It was Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte Flair for the NXT Women's title. Just an excellent match, really. Just 20 minutes of two of the best women's wrestlers in the world going at it. Just absolutely tearing the house down in the opening match. Just a really, really good match. Nothing really no bells and whistles about it, really. Just two really good women's wrestlers, and just, two of the best in the world, really. And yeah, I mean, Charlotte got the win, winning the NXT Women's title for the second time, becoming only the second woman to do so.
And a lot of people were down on the finish. We talked about it leading up to it. I thought it was the one that made sense the most, really.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people disagree with the finish. A lot of people disagreeing with the result, saying that Rhea winning here would have was the obvious ending. But I disagree. Like you, I think Charlotte winning here makes perfect sense in my opinion, and didn't disappoint me at all. That Charlotte won. I think it makes Rhea can come back stronger, and Rhea's already a star, so I think this was just the exposure on a big stage that they needed just to get her known to a wider audience, I guess. But yeah, no, excellent match. Really, really good match. I would say top three. It's in the top three best in-ring matches of the weekend. I would say the top three best matches in my opinion in ring were Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins, the Triple Threat SmackDown Tag Team Ladder match, and this match. I would say. So yeah, what else happened on night 2, Jack? Because
we talked about Firefly Fun. The Drew McIntyre obviously in the main event. If you want to skip to that, Drew McIntyre obviously won the Universal title in short order against Brock Lesnar. Brock wasn't sticking around for the WWE side. Brock obviously wasn't sticking around long in the production side of things, so that was in short order. And then we learned the next night on Raw that after the cameras went off the air on WrestleMania, the Big Show came out and challenged, and everyone almost had a heart attack because they thought it would be typical WWE, just because the Big Show is going to be on Netflix this week, to put the WWE title on him. So, but thank God that didn't happen. Obviously, Drew got over that hurdle and is still the WWE champion, and is now in a feud with Seth Rollins, which looks promising. Natural progression.
I reckon it's going to be really good. I reckon the match that they have probably at Money in the Bank is going to be fantastic. I would say. I would imagine.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, Drew, again, Drew was the obvious kind of choice for the winner, but you can never guarantee these things, and especially when it comes to Brock Lesnar, you just never know. And I mean, apparently Drew and Brock are really good friends, and apparently Brock has a really good rapport with Drew, and he went out there and just sold his ass off for 3 or 4 Claymore kicks or whatever it was, and put him over and did the right thing. So, God, I love Brock Lesnar. I think he's great.
When he's turns it up, and when he's on his game, he's one of the best in the world still.
I think he's top 10 best of all time. Genuinely, easily. But yeah, we'll see where Drew's WWE Championship reign goes from there. First champion to ever be born in the UK. First WWE champion to ever be born in the United Kingdom. But so that's obviously a huge deal. And yeah, I mean, just fair play to Drew. I mean, his story is fantastic. Just going from obviously this prospect that was being groomed to be a main eventer, and then obviously just nothing didn't really go his way, and ended up being basically a jobber. He was a jobber, and then getting released 6 years ago, and going away, working his ass off in the Indies, getting into the best shape ever, and just absolutely tearing up the Indies tearing up TNA and then coming back and proving like why there was so much hype behind him in, in
Yeah.
2009. Like, so yeah, fair play to Drew. I mean, the man's a beast. He's an absolute machine. And like, I mean, he deserves it, man. He absolutely deserves it. I can't wait to see where he goes with the title. I hope they give a decent reign, And I think Rollins is an excellent first choice for a first opponent. Like, I mean, it's a natural heel.
Yeah.
Who will, and the two of them will work well together, I would
I
imagine.
have no doubt about that. In terms of other moments for WrestleMania that we'll just go over quickly. Obviously, we had the last man standing match between Edge and Randy Orton. This match, out of all the matches over the weekend, this match had its most critics.
Yeah, it was the most divisive, probably.
I wouldn't say most divisive because I think a lot of people unanimously didn't like the match. I thought I thought it was good. The obviously it was very methodical, a very kind of Randy Orton based methodical. The commentators obviously didn't help. They fucking were talking like it was a Masters golf game. It was very. And I get what they were trying to do. They were, trying to let the story play out and stuff, but that just wasn't working. And I was kind of disappointed that, like, especially in post, like, you had a lot of opportunity to flag all this in post production because they had that luxury, but they obviously didn't. I thought the match obviously could have been 10 minutes shorter. I didn't think we needed 45, 50 minutes of this.
It went
And
it went 36 minutes, like the actual bell to bell, but like all together, yeah, probably went about 46 minutes, like
yeah. So like I actually enjoyed the finish. I liked I liked how Edge played it. Like I see a lot of people and they were like, oh, why would he be upset or be crying because like look what Randy did to him and did to his wife and stuff. Like, why would he be upset that he's doing this? But the way I took it was that the way I took it anyway, I don't know if you took the same, is it wasn't that he was upset over the whole like over hurting Randy. The way I took it was that he's been 9 years out of the business. He's become a dad twice over. And the way I took it was because he did that concerto in the end, he is letting that side of him back in, that rated R superstar, that viciousness is coming back. Whereas he was, jolly old dad for 9 years. That was just cementing that the rated R superstar, his edge, no pun intended, is back. So he's kind of struggling with that a little. So that's the way I took it. I don't know what way you took it, but I just see a lot of.
I didn't take it to be like that he was upset because he was hurting Randy Orton. Like, I took it to be like that. Like, yes, it was the culmination of 9 years, like, working and trying to get back to where he was, and I think like it was meant to like convey the frustration he's gone through, obviously, with like, I mean, he just came back and then Randy tried to like end his career all over again, and like just finally when you're like you achieve something, and just I think it was just like being overwhelmed with the emotion of like finally getting back to where he was and winning at WrestleMania and getting over this massive hurdle in the form of Randy Orton. And
yeah.
Like, yeah, I mean, I didn't take it to be like, I took it, yeah, more or less the way you took it. I didn't take it to be, oh, he sad because he was hurting Randy Orton. I didn't take it that way at all. I think it was fairly obvious as well that wasn't the case. So, but yeah, like you said, I mean, like the match, it's hard to call it a bad match. It was because I think it's a lot different to what they probably want, of what they were probably going to do, had WrestleMania gone as planned. Um,
Yeah.
so it was very long, and a lot of it was kind of repetitive, like punch, kick, thrown into the next room, and kind
Yeah.
of a lot of that, and again, like you said, the commentators just were awful there. They just no, I know they were probably trying to like put over the fact that this was so serious and this was so like everything that these two guys were doing was so dramatic that they couldn't even bring themselves to speak. But like, I mean, imagine if it was like 99 JR calling this match, like it would have been,
Yeah. But
or
I do get that. I do get the portraying it as serious and stuff. But I just thought the wrong team was on the call if you wanted to do it like that. I think if
yeah,
you wanted I think it should have been Cole and JBL if you wanted it to do that, because obviously they have a lot of experience on that. I think Byron and Tom Phillips just came across as that they came across as people that weren't arsed calling this match more so than people who were taking it very, very serious. So that was my take on it. For the rest of WrestleMania, we got Daniel Bryan and Sami Zayn. Obviously, it was a different match than people expected, but I think it was the correct match because Sami is now kind of that heel manager role more so than like a full time wrestler.
well,
So
we got to talk about as well kind of one of the bigger moments that happened from WrestleMania. That was, of course, young boy named Otis finally getting the girl.
oh yes, yeah.
Just
I
absolutely, spun the world on its heads. And when we realized that Vince McMahon was actually going to do it and actually book Otis the way he should be booked.
Yeah,
And
I was actually really surprised that this was the way it happened. I genuinely thought that he wasn't going to get the happy ending, but he did. So that's it was good. Obviously, it would have been a lot more better if they had a crowd. I think that was the one match where you look at and you wish the crowd was there, more so than any other match. But I still enjoyed it. I thought it was a good finish.
I still enjoyed it too. I mean, I was at
Yeah.
home, screaming for Otis, but like,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, just like again, like you said, it would have been way better if there was a crowd there. But look, nothing we can do. I would have rather them gone this way and done it like do the right ending to the story rather than hold it out until they can do it with the crowd there, because who knows when that's going to
Yeah.
be. So yeah, I suppose that was WrestleMania. Kind of the highlights really from the two nights. Overall, I mean, I think it was probably the best show they could have put on under the circumstances. I couldn't,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I was going in there completely unaware of what I was going to see. I knew it was going to be no crowd. I knew it was going to be an empty arena, and I knew it was going to be like there was going to be pre-records and stuff, but I still wasn't sure like how it was going to actually go down. And
Yeah.
it was really enjoyable, and I think they achieved exactly what they wanted to achieve in the sense that it was it was an escape from the current reality we're all experiencing, and it was a way to kind of forget about what's going on. So I tip my hat to them. So long as they took every regulation and took every precaution as seriously as they could have done, and just did everything they could have done to put on the show as best they could have under the
Yeah.
circumstances. So yeah, I reckon it was WrestleMania was a success.
I do too. I I think anyone who complained about the show in the sense that they thought they didn't like the show, I think those are a certain group of people who only watch wrestling to shit all over it. So I don't. How could you complain about the show that you got? Really, I thought it was best of a bad situation.
Yeah.
Um,
No, don't get me wrong. I don't want to see an empty arena at WrestleMania, but I don't want to see it ever again. I really hope that it's we have crowds from here on out. But if we have to, if that's the way it's going to be, like as in like if they have to do it again, like I know they'll have to do it again, the upcoming pay per view and whatever. But like if we have to do WrestleMania again in an empty arena, I know they can pull it off.
Yeah, and
So
I'm confident if, and especially like not even WrestleMania, because we're going to have, like, and we'll talk about it in a while. We now know we're going to have another pay per view, at least in an empty arena, and like I'm confident. I'm confident they're going to pull that off, as ridiculous as that's going to be, because we'll talk about that in a while. But no, I have full confidence now that they can do shows and make them entertaining. Because my worry was that for WrestleMania this year was going to be, like, first off, my worry was that like night one was going to be boring, and then you were going to go into night two not optimistic and not really get what you wanted. But night one was so good that I couldn't wait for night two. Then, and it was just perfectly played into each other, and I thought it was the best show they could have put on given the circumstances. So yeah, Vince did it again, the evil bastard.
yeah, so yeah, there's just not much more you can say other than that, I guess. So I guess we'll move on from WrestleMania. We'll kind of get into the news that's been going on during this week. So I suppose we'll start off with some unfortunate news, and that is on Wednesday. WWE decided to release a bunch of wrestlers, basically, and not just wrestlers, but also some talent, like backstage talent and whatever. But so the names started pouring out. It happened on Wednesday.
It all happened so
Which is now,
quick as well. Like,
yeah.
like every time you refreshed your social media, there was a new name.
It came out with an original 9 names, and it like again, like you said, every time you refreshed, it was one or two more got added, until eventually it kind of slowed down, and they got to, I think in total it was near 40. I can't remember exactly how many there were, but it was near 40. And there's more that we don't know about. Apparently, there was a lot of layoffs as well in WWE headquarters, like, the guys working up there. Apparently, 40% of the workforce was cut, which
A
is
lot of them, though, a lot of them have been furloughed more so than laid
yeah.
off.
The
So
majority,
if anyone who doesn't know what furlough means, like that they technically let them go, but
I leave it at,
so they can get the government benefits. But once the lockdown gets lifted, these people will return to their jobs. So
yeah.
um,
So like
so
it's like a temporary absence kind of thing, like,
yeah,
and that kind of applied more so for the producers, um, and
and
I
the
think,
office staff, yeah.
yeah, and the office staff. So like there was a good few producers that were let go, but only one of them, as far as I can tell, was fired, like was let go permanently. So I just have a quick list here of some of the names. I don't have all the names. I'm missing basically all the backstage people, or that's all the backstage people. But so the first person that kind of came out was, and this was the one producer that was actually let go and not furloughed, was Kurt Angle. But Kurt Angle's gone.
Yeah.
This ends
Now the thing with Kurt was he wasn't fully a producer yet. He was still training, so that was probably the reason he was let go more so than furloughed, because he still wasn't actively doing that job. He was shadowing for a
yeah,
lot of it. So I've heard. So that's probably the reason. And I think he still had a talent contract, more so than a producer contract. So he was probably getting paid more anyway. So I think that's the reason why they let him go.
okay, yeah. I'll just quickly go through them because there is a lot of them there. So we had Kurt Angle, Drake Maverick, Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson, EC3, Leo Rush, Kurt Hawkins, Eric Young, Heath Slater, Aiden English, Sarah Logan, Mike Chioda, Eric Rowan, the Clones, Primo and Epico, Mike Kanellis, Maria Kanellis, Zack Ryder, No Way Jose, Rusev, Alexander Jaksic, Diana Perrazzo, Cesar Bononi, Tenara Conti, Cassius Ono, Mars Wang. There was one other, Mars Wang, and Tino Sabatelli. And there was other producers let go, like Sean DeVary, Shane Helms, it was Sarah Stock, Sarah Stock. Who else was let go on the producer side? Scott Armstrong. Trying to think now who else. I know I'm missing a big one. I'm missing an obvious producer. I don't know.
IRS, did you name him?
Yeah, Mike Rotunda. He's gone.
Hurricane.
I said Shane Helms. Now they have some here. We also had Josiah Williams, Dan Matha, Ace Steele, Serena Deeb. They're all gone. Serena Deeb and Ace Steele, two coaches, and Dan Matha was a wrestler under the name Dorian Mack. And Josiah Williams was kind of like a backstage personnel kind of guy, kind of like my first exposure to him was when he rapped Adam Cole to the ring at one of the takeovers, and he was kind of like he worked on the music, I think, and he was also kind of working to be not an announcer, but kind of like just kind of around the WWE sphere, like, you know. There was also a guy, what was his name? Something Soto. He was one of the Spanish announcers in training. He was let go.
I think he was furloughed more so than let go, though. So I think he will return once it all comes back and goes back to normal. So just based on the some of the talent that was let go, I just want to go through it and talk about their contributions in their time in the WWE and what, you know, we can see next for them. So we start with probably the biggest names to be released, and two names that surprised me most.
Sorry, but I just remembered that Finlay was the other guy that I couldn't think of.
Oh, Finlay, yeah, of course, Finlay. So we'll just go through those who've been let go and talk about their contributions and stuff. So we start off with Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows, who had just signed a big contract to stay with the company, and obviously featured heavily in WrestleMania and the build up to it. So I was surprised that they were the first two names in the car to go, or one of the first two names to be let go. I would believe the reason is because they've signed a huge contract, and I suppose WWE saw that the money that they were on compared to what they had planned for them or what they were doing on TV just what didn't match up. So I think that was probably the reason they were let go more than anything. I think a team obviously that came. Obviously, Luke Gallows had been with the company before and left and went and went on to big things in Japan. I think they obviously came in with big expectations, along with Nakamura and AJ at that time with the big kind of seizing of Japanese talent. I think they came in hot, and then it was just it just kind of died off. I think WWE could have done a lot more with them, and they didn't. They kind of stopped and kind of gave up on using them for a while, and it just looked as if they were going to start coming back. They recently were Raw Tag Team Champions. It looked like they were getting their push again, obviously with AJ, but it never really took off in terms of their of what they should have been or what was expected of them when they first started, and that was to none of the both faults. I think it was more WWE creative, and unfortunately, it'll go down like a lot of these people who have been released as a missed opportunity. There is more here on this list that WWE could have done a lot more with. So yeah, do you have anything regarding Gallows and Anderson in their run that I've missed there?
No, not really. Like, I mean, obviously, like you said, they came in and like were a very hotly anticipated kind of debut once word got out that they had signed. Their actual debut was really good as well when they just came in out of nowhere and attacked the Usos and just made a real splash. But again, like you said, I don't think they were like from the off. I don't think they were capitalized on properly. How many they won? I know they won. Was it twice they won the Raw Tag Team titles? Was that how? I can't even remember. I think it was twice. And
yeah,
and obviously they won that that big that best in the world tag team thing in Saudi Arabia. But other than that, they were kind of nothing more than AJ Styles lackeys, and they didn't achieve the heights that we know that they are capable of achieving, like they did in Japan, which seems to be where they're headed back to. Carl Anderson teased on his Twitter. It should basically a little promo, a little vignette thing of like a plane taking off from Los Angeles, I think, flying to Tokyo, and then like at the end it just says machine gun, and it seems like almost like a done deal that Carl Anderson will be heading back to Carl Anderson will be heading back to Japan, and it seems like Luke Gallows probably will follow suit. Tama Tonga also put up a thing on Twitter, just of the too sweet and saying for life. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him back in Japan. I think that makes the most sense. That's where they were treated the best. That's where they were kind of made the biggest stairs, and utilized to their utmost potential. Carl Anderson especially, like, I mean, he was a legit singles star in Japan as well, like an actual like a singles threat in Japan. I'm sure he got like
he was the first Gaijin to ever get to the G1 final, which is a huge thing. And obviously people have followed suit, like Kenny Omega won the thing, and like a couple of others have done it since. But there was big hopes for Carl Anderson and big expectations of him in Japan, and I think if he does come back and when he does come back, I think they'll go back, slot right back into where they left.
I think Japan's probably the best place for him. I know a lot of people saying like AEW due to the connections, books, whatever, like, but I think Japan's the best place for him. Like, I mean, they've established themselves there. They'd be huge. They'd pick up exactly where they left off, and it would be like they never left them. So Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows, that's again one of the bigger names. Of course, like other big names that were kind of cut, that were kind of surprising. One was Rusev. He was a guy who was kind of in contractual disputes with WWE for the last couple of weeks, a couple of months even, and it was unclear whether like he was looking to be released or he was just trying to negotiate more money for himself or what. Like, but he was kept off TV. He's been kept off TV for a good few weeks now, and apparently it was due to these contractual negotiations. And look, in the end, they decided to just let him go. Which is sad. I mean, Rusev was another guy who like was never really capitalized on properly when they should have. Like, obviously he was brought in as the atypical foreign heel, and he had a really good run. Went on this big undefeated streak, won the United States Championship, had that big marquee match with John Cena at WrestleMania. Came out in the tank.
Where he came out the tank, yeah, like
all great stuff. And since he's since become a 3-time United States champion, which is pretty good. And then of course there was the whole, the birth of Rusev Day, and like, the whole the way that caught on with the crowd, and it was one of those moments where WB failed to capitalize on, on a talent being so hot with the crowd and being so over. And it was one of these examples of like, if WB doesn't come up with it, that they refuse to kind of go with it. And
Yeah.
it was just a shame, like even him and Aiden English like never got a chance to capture the tag team titles together, or even like just anything. They were barely thrown a bone during the whole Rusev Day saga. And you know, again, like you said, like Rusev was never a guy. He was always good. He was always he was good in the ring. He's incredibly charismatic. He's so funny, and he was just never given the proper chance. It'd be interesting to see where he kind of goes from here, because unlike Anderson and Gallows, he has very little kind of experience on the indies that I can dig up anyway. I looked, and like the majority of his wrestling training and his wrestling career came from Performance Center and WWE. He had a very brief run on the indies just before he signed, but like nothing too extensive, and nothing in any major kind of promotion, and nothing of note really. So it'll be interesting to see where he shows up. Like, I'm sure like there'll be plenty of players looking to sign him. Like, obviously, he's a great talent to have. But I think it'll be interesting to see how he transitions into a new role, because like I doubt they'll be doing something similar to the Rusev character. Like, obviously they'll have, like, we'll know it's Rusev, whatever. But it'll be interesting to see how he actually, changes up. Changes up to move to the Indies. There's still sorry, go on.
Sorry. No, I agree with that. I agree that it'll be interesting as to where he ends up, but I have no real worries about, whether his career or how his career will go now either, because like we've seen, anytime he's been given a proper chance in WWE, he is always knocked it out of the park. If it was the first time with Cena, or else the Rusev Day stuff that they were even kind of holding him back a little on, and he still ended up doing very well with that. Any opportunity he's been given, he's done well with it. Even as close to like recently with the Bobby Lashley stuff, like obviously some of that was stupid, like, but he done that well, and to the point where when he ruined the wedding, he got a huge reaction still. So I've no worries as that Rusev will be okay. I'm interested to see where he turns up. I think a lot of places will be looking to have him there. Like even like places like Japan, he'd fit right in. I think obviously AEW would be looking at him. Places like Ring of Honor, NWA, all these places should be looking at a talent like Rusev, because he has a lot to offer. So
my bet would be on Japan. I reckon he'd suit Japanese style, well.
Yeah.
And I think he'd get over in Japan as well. Like, I think he just has that he has that charisma, as Jericho would say. So yeah, I mean, Rusev, another big name. Who else? Of course, another kind of surprising one. Two surprising ones were Drake Maverick and Lio Rush, because like Lio Rush obviously is a guy who has always had kind of controversy surrounding him, especially in his WWE career.
He's had issues, he's had his problems.
Yeah, like ironically, getting backstage heat apparently for making fun of Emma when she was released back in 2017, I think, or 2018 maybe, I can't remember. And like ironically, making fun of someone getting released, and now he's facing it. And like he took some time away and tried to get obviously he had that run as Bobby Lashley's manager, where he was really good at the role, but apparently still had heat off people. So he had to go away again and get everything sorted, and came back in NXT, and seemed to actually be okay now. Won the NXT Cruiserweight Championship, which was great, and he had some really good matches. Lost the title to Angel Garza, and then and now he's gone. And of course, then if I think it's kind of we have to kind of address Jake Maverick, because he almost became the figurehead of these releases, because he was one of the first names, if not the first name announced. I can't remember if it was him or Kurt Angle, but he was a peculiar one, because he was announced as one of the participants in the interim cruiserweight championship tournament, and still is. He is going to be competing in it,
which is crazy to think of, like, that they released the man and still have asked him to compete, and he's fair play to him, because a lot of people, I think, would have just been like, no, fuck you, I'm not competing in this now, like, if you're going releasing me. So that just shows a testament of his character, that he's still willing to do business, like when even though they essentially fired him, but yeah, it's it will be interesting to see where he ends up. Obviously, he released that video that was very tough to watch for a couple of reasons, but I think if I was a betting man, I think once it's all said and done and once it's cleared, he'll make his way back to the company. I think he's done obviously really well in anything they've given him. That he was essentially the poster boy, him and R-Truth, for that 24/7 title. He also filmed stuff at his wedding, at his actual wedding, to do with that. So he's
not even that. I mean, even when he originally came in as the general manager of 205 Live, and he was excellent in the role, and then he had that fantastic feud with Mike Kanellis, and then even when he was brought in as the manager for AOP, and he had to pee himself on television, and he did it, and he owned it, and he did the best as he could, I guess. And it was funny. It was he's just a really funny guy, and
he's a guy that never really takes himself seriously, and never says no to anything. He always, whatever they give him, he makes it work. And I think those are guys that Vince and other people in the company love working with. And I think when this is all said and done, they have an opportunity to bring some of these people back, I think he'll be one of the first names on the list. Which I hope. I think for any company, anyway, even if that doesn't happen, I think any company would be lucky to have a talent like him in their ranks. He's made anything work, or everything work in anything he's done in his career. So I don't see a lack of work for him at any stage here. I know he said that the next 3 matches might be the last 3 matches he has. I don't think he's done. I think there's a job for him kind of essentially anywhere in the world. So I'm interested to see where that ends up. Obviously, Leo Rush as well. Was his career was didn't go without its hiccups and stuff, but he is a phenomenal talent. I think obviously, given the reputation that he kind of has gained, some companies will be reluctant to work with him, especially if the company hasn't worked with him before, or people who run the company don't know him. But I think he is a great talent. I could see definitely someone like a Ring of Honor bringing him back. He worked for them in the past.
I was thinking Ring of Honor as well.
Yeah, even an AEW could easily bring him in. I don't think he's really young. What is he? 26?
He's something
25,
like that.
26.
Yeah, he's ridiculously young, because he was
So he's going to be okay too.
Yeah, he'll be fine. The kind of last thing I want to address, kind of in detail, before we move on, because we could spend all day talking about all of them, is EC3, because he's a guy who for ages now we've been talking about how he should be released because like it would be better for him if he was released. I mean, he's not being
Yeah.
utilized on WWE properly, if at all, and he's a guy who it's so weird. Like I mean, like they brought him in however many years ago. They gave him his run, and then obviously they didn't see any future for him there, so they let him go. He went to TNA. He went to TNA and just was fantastic. Became one of the biggest stars in the company in TNA, and just seemed like a natural. It just seemed natural for him to come back and prove that he was really good. And came back in 2018 with NXT. Had a very short run in NXT, but an excellent run in NXT. He was really good. I mean, he was showing how he could have been great. And then
What was
brought up.
memorable about that was his feud with Velveteen Dream. I thought that was very good. The vignettes that they did and stuff. Um, the it's a weird one. I don't get why they took him up with it, like up to NXT, or took him up from NXT, to just basically do nothing with him.
Just a very
I know from what John Moxley has said, the reason, and he's given insight as to why they kind of soured on him, was because he was working with like EC3 just as he was closing out his run, and like people like Moxley was leaving, and everyone kind of knew that, but everyone kind of loved Moxley as well, so they were cheering him. Despite the fact he was a heel, and then every time they went to the back after that, Vince was giving EC3 shit because people were cheering John Moxley even though he was the heel, and I think that he kind of soured on him from then. But again, I think what a waste of what a way, like that's out of everyone here, he's probably been most disappointing, not because of the talent that he has, or not from the want of him trying. I think WWE could have done a lot more with him and decided not to for whatever reason. Again,
yeah, and like
it'll be interesting to see where he ends up. He could easily go back to Impact. I could definitely see that.
yeah.
I could definitely see a run in AEW for him as well if you wanted to. I
Yeah,
think he
and he
will stay in the US. I think
yeah,
Japan won't be
I think so too. Yeah, I think he'll stay in the US as well. And like I said, like it'll be kind of interesting because like of course like MJF has kind of filled the EC3 gap in the independents, and
yeah,
but he does appear to be working on a gimmick change. I mean, like he's after shaving his head and growing this goatee, and
yeah,
he's gotten himself into fantastic condition. I
yeah.
thought he was I thought he was ripped before. Like he's shredded now. He's absolutely jacked. And
I think out of guys who are most kind of set with this and prepared is EC3, because I think he obviously knew he was leaving a long time ago. It's obviously come quicker than he thought, but he's probably been planning an exit strategy for a long time now. So
yeah,
I
probably.
feel he's probably the most prepared to enter this level of free agency now than anyone. So I'd say his gimmick change and all that has been all planned out
Yeah,
well in
and
advance.
like himself and Drake Maverick, who are best friends in real life, like are already posting like workout videos together, and like EC3 put up a
Yeah,
picture of him about to shave Drake Maverick's head as well. So like
yeah,
it looks like they might be going in as like a team maybe to Independence or to wherever they go.
maybe. My thing is right, and they obviously had a feud in TNA, or Impact, which was really good. But my thing is, uh, I read somewhere, this was months ago now, and I could be remembering this incorrectly, but I think I remember seeing months ago that WWE filed for the trademark of EC3. So do they own the name EC3 is what I want to know now. Will he have to be
I don't
something
know.
different?
Well, I suppose he could be Ethan Carter the third, maybe.
Maybe, yeah, because they never officially called him Ethan Carter the third.
Yeah. So maybe he can do that, or maybe just Ethan character, or maybe just a new name
Yeah.
altogether. Because I mean, who knows? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Like, I think as well, I read that. Well, this is judging from Heath Slater, because Slater put up a video addressing the release and stuff, and he said like, come July 17th, like he'll be spreading his wings or whatever. So I think the 90-day compete clause applies to all these guys. So I
Doesn't
think
really make a difference anyway, because like
exactly.
a lot
Yeah.
of people aren't running shows, and the ones that are running shows are probably taped 12 weeks in advance anyway, so doesn't really make much of a difference.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
It actually almost benefits them in a way because like they're not going to be
Gives
working
time.
regardless. So
Yeah.
um, that's kind of addressing the releases. Apparently, there was more to come. Well, apparently they're done on the main roster. They're not going to be any more SmackDown or Raw people released.
Yeah.
But there is talk
There's
of
there's just two more people I want to mention as regards to release, because I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention them. Number one, you just mentioned Heath Slater, a guy who's been with the company 16 years. I read this week. Another guy who was underutilized, in the sense that anything they gave that man, he just done really well with. Um, he's had a memorable run with like the likes of Rhino. He did that thing leading into Raw 1000 where he was wrestling all the legends, which was great. Um, so anything they've given him, he's done really, really well with. So I look forward to seeing what's in the future for him. Um,
Brent.
whether I saw a lot of people talk about this, whether the prophecy comes true and he gets really, really jacked and comes back and wins the WWE title like his other two members of Three Man Band did.
You better believe.
Uh,
Like, what's crazy? Like, Heath Slater's only 34. Like, he's
yeah, you
ridiculous.
forget that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
he still has a really, really long career ahead of him, and
yeah,
I think he's a very, very strong utility player that a lot of companies would be happy to have. So I think I'm excited to see what he does. And obviously, there's the other one was Zack Ryder, a guy who's been with the company 15 years. And when these releases started happening, I said to you, I was like, I'm not going to take these seriously unless Zack Ryder is released, because I was like, I just don't think they're ever going to release that man, and they did, which was tough to take for a lot of people, because he's been with the company so long, and had like I saw a lot of people mention, and like the likes of the modern day style of getting over was kind of pioneered by him, in the sense that like all YouTube, like the likes of Being the Elite and stuff, I don't think would have ended up being
well,
as popular if it wasn't for the
I saw one fan credit Zack Ryder for the foundation of AEW, like, because if he hadn't started Z, the Long Island story,
yeah.
whatever it was, and then there would have been no BT, and then there would have been no AEW. And I mean, it's a stretch, but like, I mean, in fairness, he did. Like,
But it does make a point, because he was the blueprint for that there is a market here for people to get over on YouTube, and
I mean, and like,
he
he's another guy who, like, WWE just loved putting down. They loved humiliating him, and they loved putting him in situations where he just couldn't win. But he
yeah.
still got over. He was still, huge. I mean, like, go back to 2011 when he won the United States Championship from Dolph Ziggler. Like, the pop was huge.
Yeah.
Like, anytime Zack Ryder showed up in 2011, the pops are huge.
But even if you look at, and when he was released, I saw this clip of when he in 2011 he was so over that The Rock was doing a promo in ring, and they were chanting, "We want Ryder." Like,
Yeah.
that's just The Rock. Like, so like he was that popular, and he still is. And we saw, obviously, Cody Rhodes put up a big post regarding Zack Ryder, and talking about how much of a pioneer he is, which has led a lot of people to believe that there might be a job waiting for him in AEW. That wouldn't surprise me. Also, wouldn't surprise me that he might make his way back to the company, to WWE, once this is all done. I think, like Drake Maverick or Rockstar Spud, I think they have. I think he's one of these people that always done well in when given the opportunity. So I think there might be a way back for him in the company, and if not, then there's plenty of other places out there that would be willing to work with him.
Well, we know that we know that he's wrestling now under his real name. He's going by Matt Cardona. And Kurt Hawkins is going under Brian Myers, which is his real name as well.
Kurt Hawkins is a guy who will be okay, because he's dealt with this before. He's been released by the company before, and he done really well the first time around. So I have no worries with him.
Me neither. So yeah, those are the releases. Like I said, there's talk of more coming from NXT side of things, more so people who are at the development talent, like the guys who are just wrestling live shows and aren't featuring prominently on TV, but will report to you as they kind of come out. And before we finish up, we have to talk about one more thing, of course, and it was another tragic event that happened this week. It actually happened the day after these releases came out, so on Thursday, and that was, of course, the unfortunate passing of Howard Finkel, the Fink, the most legendary ring announcer of all time. For a lot of people, the voice of a generation. Like, he's one of these guys, when you hear his voice, you automatically associate it with professional wrestling and WWE. Passed away, unfortunately, on Thursday at the age of 69.
The very first employee of Titan Sports.
Yeah,
the first person fired.
When I saw that this week, I actually couldn't believe it. I didn't know that, and I saw that this week, and I thought it was crazy. And apparently, the guy as well who came up with the term Wrestlemania. So
Vince wanted to call it the Colossal Tussle. Which, obviously a guy, like, was the soundtrack to many generations of wrestling. He made title changes and title wins mean that much more by the way he announced it, and just an absolute legend to the business, and someone who has paved the way for people these days and made stars, like Austin and stuff. As I said, their title wins wouldn't have probably been the same if it wasn't for the way Howard Finkel announced them. So obviously it was sad to hear that he passed this week. But for me,
when I think of Howard Finkel, like, I immediately think of Shawn Michaels. I don't know why, but I always hear like the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn.
Yeah.
Like, I always just hear that in my head. And like
I always hear, and I saw it come up a couple of times this week. I always think of the Royal Rumble. The way he'd announce the rules. And he'd touch the floor, and I think that's probably what it is. I think of the Rumble where Michaels came back over and eliminated Bulldog, and Fink announces that as because Shawn Michaels' both feet didn't touch the floor. You're winner of the Royal Rumble, Shawn Michaels. Obviously, just a great in-ring or a great ring announcer, the greatest of all time. Sad to hear his passing. It's been talked about how bad of health he had been in the last couple of years, but still always sad to see someone like that go. So tough week this week for wrestling fans, I would imagine. This week for anyone in the company as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a really rough week. A lot of bad news transpiring this week, but look, you have to take the good with the bad, I suppose, and the bad with the good.
Yeah,
And
in terms of speaking of rough weeks, no one has had a rougher week than Vince McMahon. My God, he lost something like $250 million in his own money on Sunday. Obviously, the whole cut thing didn't help him with his public image and stuff. There was a dark side, the new episode of the Dark Side of the Ring reveals that, well, didn't reveal, but speculated that he might have been involved in covering up a murder. Um, so
Yeah, it's been a rough
there,
week for Vince, above
yeah.
all else.
Uh,
But
by the way, just as we touched on that, have you watched any of the Dark Side of the Rings recently? I know you watched the Benoit one. Have you watched any more?
no, I haven't watched any more.
I recommend you do. You go back and watch them because they're fantastic. The New Jack one is just nuts. Like, it's fucking crazy, but it's really really interesting. The Brawl for All. I thought, I was like, how are you going to get an hour out of that? But or what's dark about the Brawl for All? But if you look at it, it really is kind of sad. Um, and obviously this week was the death of Nancy Argentino, Jimmy Snuka's girlfriend at the time, and what ensued over that. So that was really really interesting, and a really really good episode. So and there's more to come. I know there's Owen Hart is an episode they're doing. They're doing Dino Bravo next, the death of Dino Bravo. A couple of more, and it'll be really interesting. So I suggest and I urge people to go out and watch that, because it's been really really good, and they're only 45 minutes an episode, so it's not that time consuming.
Yeah, I'll have to go out and watch that. I'll have to catch up on it because it does look really really good. We'll have to finish up there now, because I'm under pressure for time, and we'll come back to you next week because there's more news that we've yet to talk about, but we might get to it in the next few days. But
next week, just for everyone, we will be addressing our WrestleMania win of the Callaway title. Fucking title. So we will be addressing that next week. So tune in for that. So yeah, that has been us.
That's been us.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening, guys. Stay safe, and we'll see you soon.